This is a tough question, but once we read the statements, we realize that it is more deceptive than it is tough. A sort of answer appears to us, but when we solve it, most cases we would find that we got the answer wrong. Despite that, through the meandering structure of these statements, there is a way we can work out at least part of the sequence, at least the pairs of statements, and then the difficult task would be sequencing the pairs. Let's first find the pairs. We find that statements B and A form a pair. B says the local landscape is inscribed for those who remember with our local history. Every symbol of authority, every relic a past endeavor, every relic of past endeavor is a message to the future. And then immediately we have A, which says some messages. So from a message to the future, some messages comes as a kind of a classification, a categorization. Some messages perhaps were such as any hominid could read. Others, as the hominids began to be human, could only be read by those already initiated in the special histories of each local tribe. We also find that the special histories of each local tribe and with our local history, for those who remember, these two also give us the idea that A and B are connected in such that B introduces the premise, the context, which says the local landscape is inscribed with the local history. Inscription basically is a form of pictorial writing. We are talking about hominids here. Hominid is a prehistoric man or an early man, because we are talking about as the hominids began to be human. So we are talking about human evolution. So hominids, not exactly human, but prehistoric humans. And then as they became more and more like modern human, they evolved more and more. They could read more and more, but then those who were initiated in the special histories of each local tribe. The local landscape, of course, and inscription, the very action of inscription, is introduced in B. So first off, we have a pair in B and A. Let's put that down here. Next up, we get that statements C and D form a pair in exactly that order. C tells us, writing in the sense intended nowadays allowed strangers and the young to be initiated in more abstract ways. And then we have the aspect of, we notice the aspect of writing here. D continues by saying what was thus written down in cuneiform or hieroglyphic had been spoken and remembered and embodied in secret images long since. Now, let's keep this phrase in mind, embodied in secret images long since. They had been spoken and remembered and embodied in secret images long since. This is what we would use at the end to sequence the statements. Before that, we find that C talks about writing. Writing in the sense intended nowadays allowed strangers and the young to be initiated in more abstract ways. Again, keep the phrase abstract ways in mind. Rather, we can apply it right away. In more abstract ways, what was thus written down in these forms had been spoken and remembered and embodied in secret images long since. So what was thus written down had been remembered in images, but writing here, it helped the young and strangers to be initiated in more abstract ways. So there is a connection between C and D. First off, by the writing connection. Second, because we are talking about abstract ways. So this, in statement C, this talks about making initiation of strangers and the young more abstract, because instead of secret images, which would be more specific, which would be more material, we had writing, especially in these forms, cuneiform or hieroglyphic. These were forms based on a pictorial system of language, but they were not just drawings. They were not just cave paintings, as have been found in many caves which held remains of early humans. So it's not just cave painting. the art of writing or the system of writing had become just a little bit more abstract, as we see in statement C. So things were made abstract, writing was made abstract, and what was thus written down, that gives us the connection that C and D form a pair in that order. Statement C comes first, and then we have statement D. Let's put that down here. Let's clear this out as well. Once we have done this, unfortunately, we realize this was the easier part of the question. Now we have to sequence these two statements. If we had nothing else to go forward with, we'd realize or we'd think that there are, or we'd find that there are two ways that these could be sequenced. We know that BA is a pair and CD is a pair. So either BA comes first or CD comes first. Vice versa for the other one. The other one comes later. So either it could be, the sequence could be BA, CD, or it could be CD, BA. Those are the two possible choices, the two possible sequences that we could have. Once this is done, we look at these connections. We are talking about the connection in between, the connection of AC and the connection of DB. That would give us the answer. Now, it's very easy to think that CDBA is the correct answer because we have C, which says writing, which seems very introductory, allowed strangers and the young to be initiated. Then we have D, which connects very well, which says what was thus written down has been spoken and remembered and embodied in secret images long since. And then we come to B, which says the local landscape is inscribed for those who remember. We would think that remembered and remember, they form a connection. And then we have A, because this ends in a message to the future, and then we have some messages perhaps. So all of this seems to be very connected, but there is a quintessential problem with that. The problem is the other way around makes more sense. The sequence the other way around makes more sense. We see that the entire aspect of writing or drawing or whatever this is talking about, whatever form of writing this is talking about, is introduced here. The local landscape is inscribed, which gives us the hint that B is actually the opening statement. The local landscape. Let's not get lost in the jumble of words here. And I'm not talking about the parajumble that this question is. I'm talking about the whole mess of words that we have here. The local landscape is inscribed. What local landscape? Wherever these forms of writing or these samples of writing are, this is an actual physical place where these inscriptions probably have been found. So the local landscape, wherever this is, caves or whatever, there the inscriptions are made. For those who remember with our local history. So the local history is inscribed at the local landscape with every symbol of authority, every relic of the past, every relic of past endeavor, a message to the future. Then we immediately have some messages such that any hominid could read, others, only those hominids which had developed enough to already be initiated in the special histories of each local tribe, only they could read. Now, this is a key connection. Let's clear this out. And once again, notice the phrase, could only be read by those already initiated in the special histories of each local tribe. We see that this is the connection between local tribe, local history, and initiation, which then connects with C, which says writing in the sense intended nowadays, allowed strangers and the young to be initiated in a more abstract way. So we might think that why would we have strangers here? Because we are talking about those already initiated. But then strangers could be initiated because of writing. And these strangers did not need to see the very images because writing had become more abstract. And this is the primary connection. This is what helps us solve this entire mystery. Demystify this, so to say. Could only be read by those already initiated in the special histories of each local tribe connects with made writing more abstract. So writing made initiation more abstract because this could only be read by those who were initiated in the special histories. Think about it. If we are just talking about what's mentioned in B here, let's in fact choose a different color for it. The local landscape is inscribed. If we are only talking about our local history or these messages which were such that any hominid could read it, then we would not call it abstract. It would be pictorial. If there were a tribe which owns 10 bison or buffalo, then they would draw 10 bison or buffalo on the wall. 10 bisons, 10 buffaloes, they would draw it on the wall. And anyone, any hominid could look at it, read it, and understand that this is talking about them having 10 animals, 10 beasts. But when writing became such that it could only be read by those who were already initiated in the special histories of each local tribe, then we can say that this allowed strangers and the young to be initiated in a more abstract way. What was thus written down in these forms had been spoken and remembered and embodied in secret images long since. So, for a long time, these had been held in images, sometimes which were inscribed. But that said, there were some messages which any hominid could read, any early human being could read, but there were other messages which, when hominids began to be human, could only be read by those already initiated in the special histories of each local tribe. Hence, writing, in the sense intended nowadays, allowed strangers and the young to be initiated in more abstract ways. What was thus written down had been remembered, spoken, embodied in secret images long since. So we find by this we can qualify BACD. That figures out. Let's clear all of this again. Now let's test for CDBA. If we look at D first, then D says, what was thus written down had been spoken and remembered and embodied in secret images long since. Then we have B, the local landscape is inscribed for those who remembered with the local history. This goes against the general to specific rule because we have here the local landscape is inscribed with the local history. It doesn't say anything about making it readable to only a select few, those who were already initiated in the special history. This in fact comes later. So if we are testing the order CDBA, then we would say what was thus written down. Writing could very well be introductory. So let's not look at that. C could be the opening statement because C is a very general statement. But that said, D brings in writing. Writing, what was thus written down, had been spoken, remembered, and embodied in secret images long since. So images, they had been written down, but we don't see the way we don't see the abstract ways that is mentioned here. So CD already introduces abstract way, and then we go back to a general, which is much more specific. Let's be more particular here. Abstract ways is much more specific because it connects with already initiated in the special histories of each local tribe. So we talk about abstract ways in C. If we are testing this order, CDBA, then we talk about abstract ways, writing in abstract ways, writing making initiation possible in more abstract ways. What was thus written down was remembered from secret images long since. And then we say that the local landscape is inscribed for those who remember with our local history. So the local landscape is inscribed with our local history is much more generalized as compared to initiation in more abstract ways, because initiation in more abstract ways essentially talks about language which is not pictorial, which essentially connects with A. And then we have A coming in at the end, introducing other messages as the hominids began to be human, could only be read by those already initiated in the special histories of each local tribe. So now we realize that CDBA creates a problem because BA introduce an aspect which is then referred to in C. So C cannot come before BA, which means this order is faulty. We cannot use this. That said, Once we have worked this out, we have our final answer sequence ready. So we get the sequence as BACD. B, the first statement, then we have A, the second statement, then C, the third statement, and then finally D, the fourth and concluding statement. So if we clear all of this out, we get the final answer as the correct sequence as BACD.